Okay, so I'm gonna name the project ISTN212 revision, then go to the folder where I'm storing this. And let me just save it here. Then I'm just gonna click OK. Right, so we want, the age. So we're gonna have to get a mask text box from the toolbox, right? Let me just get a mask text box. And then once I have the mask text box, I can just go to the properties on this bottom left-hand side. So you have the mask there. Then I'm going to click the three dotted button so that now I can insert my mask, right? So in this case, I actually want the the short date. So that's going to just have the that's going to have the day, the month, and then the year, right? So now once I've added the mask, then I'll just go to the toolbox again and I'll add a button, right? And then I'll just change the text property to get age, right? So when we click this button, right, this get age, we want to take the age from here, or well, firstly, what is in the mask text box, right? We want to get that, and then we are going to extract the what is this? We're gonna extract the month, oh sorry, the day from there, and the month, and also the year, right? So once we've extracted it, then we can then check, right, for that specific, if the month, right, is like greater than today's month. If it is, then we're gonna have to subtract one, but then um we might add one if it's not, right? So I'm still trying to put the logic together. So let's just get back to it. So I'm gonna double click get my age, and then I should be inside the button, right? And then let's firstly create these variables. So let's start with, I'm just gonna say it's gonna be an integer. Is it? Yeah, let me just make it an int, and then I'm gonna say day, right, is equal to, and then the day is gonna be equals to, now let's go back here, right? So the day is made up of this mask. So let's go to the mask. We see that the mask has two characters there at the beginning, right? So we have to extract these two characters of the day, these two zeros, and then that's going to be the day. And then we're going to extract the second two zeros, that's for the month. And then we're going to extract the four characters for the year. So starting with the day, right, we're going to get the string. So that is, what's the name of the mask text box? It's mask text box 1, right? We want to get the string from mask text box 1, but we don't want everything from it. We want the substring, right? So mask text box 1 dot text dot substring, or we want parts of the string that is inside text box 1, right? So the start index, we're going to start at index 0, right? Because that's the beginning of the string. And then it's going to ask us for the length. In terms of the length, we want 2 characters in this case. So that's why I'm going to put 2 here, right? You're going to get an error because this is a string, right? You need to convert it to a an integer because we're going to store it as a number or an int. Yeah. So we can just say int dot pass, right? Open brackets, then close brackets at the end, right? Then we have the day, right? And I can even put a breakpoint and then run it just so that you can see. Let's say 02 12 2023, right? So when I click get age, right? For now it's gonna be 0, but when I step into the next line, you can see now day is equal to 2, right? And you see the substring that it returned is 02, right? So now we're gonna do the similar thing for the month. So int month is equal to int dot pass because we want to convert the answer that we get to an integer. And then we're just gonna get the value from mass text box 1. And then you need to say that you want the text of it. So mass text box 1 dot text, then we're gonna get the substring from mass text box 1 dot text, right? So the substring is gonna be now we're gonna be starting from, we want the month now. So let me just go to this here, the mass property. You can see we want the month, right? So to get the month, you have to count from 0. So the first 0 is at index 0. The second one is at index 1. The / is going to be at index 2. And then the first digit of the month is going to be at index 3, right? So now we're going to then say here the start index is going to be 3, and then comma, it's going to ask us for the length. We actually want 2 characters in this case for the month, right? So we've gotten then the substring for the month, so that it returns the month and stores it in the month attribute. Okay, so after that declaration, right, then we want to then create an integer for the year, right? So the year int here is equals to int dot pass. Again, we're gonna convert it or to an integer, or you can write converts dot to integer and then open brackets. You know, it's the same thing. So again, now I'm gonna want the mass text box 1 dot text, right? And then I want the substring or parts of the string that is in mass text box 1 dot text. Then I'm going to open brackets. Now I want the year, right? So for the year, right, it's here. So remember that we counted from 0, and then we said 1, and then that's 2, and then that's 3, right? It's the first 0 of the month. Then the next one is going to be at index 4. Then the next one is at index 5, and then the year first 0 is at index 6. So now we're going to have to start from 6 here. Excuse me. So we're going to start from 6 here, and then semicolon. We want 4 characters for the length, right? Because year has 4 characters. Okay, so that is the year. Then after we got in the year, then we now want to calculate the age, right? So let's create an integer variable. We'll call it age. So age is going to be equals to the year minus, actually, the today's date minus the year. Yes. So if it's 2023 minus the year that they've selected, right? So we're going to say date time dot now, right? Dot year, right? Minus the year that we created, the attribute that we created for the year, right? So then we'll get our age, right? So let me just put in something. Right. And then I'm going to click get age, and then I'm going to step into, and then you can see it's getting the day, which is 23, right? And restoring that 23. And then I'm going to step into again, and then you can see the month is 10, which I entered earlier there. You can see the month. And then I'm going to step into again, and now we got the year, which is 1993. And then when we step into again, now it's going to give us the age, right? Which is 30. But so now we've gotten this, but it could happen, right, that the person hasn't turned 30 as yet because of their birthday, right? Now, maybe right, by now, since the October has passed, right? Now they are 30, but if October hadn't passed, they are not 30 as yet, right? So we also need to handle that. So we're gonna have to put in an if statement, right? So what are we checking, right? We're trying to check if the month that the person has, right, is greater than the month, no, is less than, right, the month that is from today's month, right? If it is, then we're gonna subtract one from it, from the age, right? So that the age is 29. So if their birthday month hasn't come yet, then that means they are not that age as yet. So we're gonna subtract one from it. So what I mean is I'm gonna say month, right, which is the month from there. If it's less than the date, time, dot now, dot month, right? Then what we're gonna do is we're just gonna set age to be equals to age minus one, right? Meaning that they haven't gotten to that age as yet. And then let's just output the age, right? So I'm gonna say message box dot show open brackets. Then I'm gonna say my age, and you should output it as a string. So my age is plus, and then I'm gonna type in age. Then say plus, and then I'm gonna say years old. Okay, no, I'm just gonna say years, and then remove the breakpoint. Then I can just start it again. Oh yeah, it's gonna give me an error because of the semicolon at the end, and then I can just click start again. And then I'm gonna put in the same date and time as last time. So then I'm gonna say 1993, right? So they're on the 10th, or sorry, on the 23rd of October, 1993. So since now it's already passed, right? It's gonna be it's gonna be 29 years, right? Let me just check. Maybe I didn't type it now. I think I've swapped it around. I'm supposed to say if the month, right, that they've typed here is less than the date, time, now, month, then we're gonna subtract. Else they are gonna be that's okay. Now they are 29 years. Let me just check with the breakpoint. I'm just thinking that I may have done it the other way around. So you need to make sure that you check your code if you are unsure. Because last time we got 30, so I'm trying to see what I did. Right. So for the age, let me step into again. It minus 1. No, something just happened now. I don't know what just happened. Oh, 2023, that's why. So let me put it again. Right, so it's 1993 now, so it should be fine. So I just want to see the age. So the age is 30, right? But since 10 is less than since 10 is less than the date, time, dot month, then no, it should be the other way around. It shouldn't be this because October has already passed, so we can't be minusing 1 because the October is passed. So now they're already 30. So that's why I was saying that I may have made a mistake here. So now I expect the age to be 30 since the day has passed, right? So now when I put in the same date, 23/10/1993, I should be getting 30 years because that day is passed, right? So let me put something, let me put 11 and then I'm going to put 04 here. So when I put 04, that day hasn't passed. Oh, sorry, that day has, I should be saying 12 here because we're focusing on the month. So you see now, since that month, right, hasn't arrived as yet, it's the 12th, right? And it's not December yet, so it's still 11 here. So we're going to subtract 1. So there's still 29 years. But if that day comes, right, then they're going to be 30 years. So I just wanted to go over this small example, right? So that you can see how to manipulate strings, right? And again, you can go over the second revision session that we did. The recordings are uploaded online. We did do something similar where we were working with a structure which stored the time. I think we stored it as a string and then we're extracting it as a substring. So just to expand your idea on strings, right? So I just wanted to show you that, right? So that's working with strings, and I'm hoping that everyone is with me. Again, if you wanted to ask me something or you want to go over something together, we can. You can just point me towards what do you want to know, right? So, yeah, perhaps we can do this example for one, because we've already covered strings handling. Perhaps we can do this example, right? So I'm not going to do it exactly like the textbook, right? So just going to be using the same layout, but, we're going to do it our own way so that we can we can cover 1D arrays, and then finally we can move on to the last one, which is 2D arrays. But if you wanna, ask something else, can we go over test 2 question 1, 2023, question 220? Okay. Let me just look for that paper. It's on Learn, right? Okay, I'm looking for it. Oh, okay. Now the thing is here with this paper, which I'm gonna show you now. I can't really, I don't know why I can't get just the paper. I'm only getting the one with the solution. Oh, okay, that's fine. Um, we can actually, yeah, we can actually do it. It's fine. We can use the same thing because well, you can even look at the solution. It's fine, but we can do it differently because I'm sure you wouldn't have thought of doing it the way that um they did it here, right? So we're gonna just start with it just now. I want to check something before we get to it. And someone is saying that we can go over test one. So let me just look at test one. What was the question? Test one, question three. So this one is what is with array. What is this? Not arrays. It's with SQL. Okay. Let's see which one would be much quicker to do. I mean, both are doable, but okay, let's start with the first one that was asked with the test two question one. Right. So I just have to download the paper and then show it to you. Wait, it's all right. So here it is. All right. So yeah, the question was, right, that you have as part of improving, the security for messages, an application is required to encode um words in an email, right? A cipher has been provided that sorry has been provided that converts um text in the original message coded in the original message to a coded message that can only be deciphered by or decoded by a given cipher. So a cipher is shown below. The last column is for the space. So you have multiple columns, right, for the alphabets, and then you have on other attributes that are accompanying um that alphabet, so it's the cipher of it. So an application must be developed that will convert input of a that will convert input of a value entered by a user and stored in the original on the variable original to a coded word using a the cipher above. So the coded message is created by substituting the letters in original with the corresponding characters in the second row of the cipher table, right? For the purposes of this question, you may assume that the user only provides lowercase letters. What is this? Lowercase letters, uppercase letters, or spaces as inputs, no numbers or special characters. Two examples of inputs are provided. Note that the lowercase or uppercase letters are used and the same encoded character is generated. So yeah, they're gonna put in story time, and then the variable that is gonna be coded is gonna be that, right? So and then you have two examples, right? So let's just create, this application, right, that will do this. So we are gonna want to firstly create an array, right? We're gonna create a 2D array. So there's multiple ways of doing it, right? You don't really have to use the same type, right? Like what is this? You don't have to use the same structure or like is the solution that was given, right? Where you're gonna be using characters. You can actually use the a string, right, to declare these variables. So let's just do exactly that. So let's start from here. All right, so let me just create a new project. All right, so it's going to be a Windows Form application, and then revision 2. Then I'm going to click OK. All right, so let's give them a text box and a button. So they, excuse me, they're going to enter something like the text onto the text box, right? And then they're going to click a button. Once they click the button, then that's going to do the magic, and then we can output the answer to a message box or a label, but let's just use a message box, right? So firstly, let's add it here, and then I'm just going to say cipher, right? And then we're going to double click it, and then we're going to go inside. So before we do anything here, firstly, we need to declare a 2D array, right? So this 2D array will just store strings, right? So it'll be a string, and then you need to mention the square bracket and then put a comma inside to say that this is a 2D array, right? And then for this 2D array, right, we want to then say we're going to call it cipher, right? And then is equal to new, and then string. And then now this is where we need to mention, right, what are the characters, right? So then we're going to say that this, so now the way that they did it in the, what is this? In the example is different to how we can do it here, right? So we're just going to go back to that slide here. And here at the beginning. So we can do it a bit different where we're just going to initialize the columns, right, to these variables. Why are we using string as a data type? Because we want to store this. You can use a character if you want, right? But you can also use, you can store these variables as strings, or you can store them as it said, what is this? You can store them as, what's this word? As characters if you want to, right? So what I'll do is, right, what I want to do is I'll, for each character in this array, right, I want to store it like from A to the last character, right? I actually want to store these variables, right, as strings. And then also I'll store these variables manually, right, to another array, right? And then depending on, so I'll have to like loop through all the words that have been entered here for story time, right? I'll start from index 0 and then work, sorry, I'll work my way, right? I'll just loop through the whole string. And then firstly, I'll see S, right? Once I find S, I'll have to look for S here, right? In the first part of the array. And then I'll see S, right, that it's at index, let's say it's at index 19, right? And then once I find at index 19, then I'll use the second array, right, to get the star. And then I'll add that star to the coded attribute, right? And then I'll do the same when I get to T, I'll look for T with the index of T. And then once I find the index of T, then I can then look for its equivalent attributes, right? And then once I find it, then I'll do the same thing, right? And then I'll loop toward till I get to the end. So far it's not that clear, right? Because we are starting it right now, so it's not that clear because it is a bit confusing to think about it, right? So let's do it like that, right? Where we're gonna have two arrays, and then for that two arrays, we can just loop through all of those arrays. So what it's gonna have, this array, right? Let's go back. It's gonna have two columns, two rows, and then again, it's gonna have 27 characters, right, in it, because of the characters here, right? So there's 27 characters and 27 columns, and we have two rows. So the first row is just gonna contain well, what is this? It's going to contain the alphabets, and then the second one is going to contain the, what is this? The characters that we want. Yeah. Okay, so because we've established that now, so now we can get started with the first part. Right. So I'm just thinking maybe we're gonna have to initialize the values, right, of that's gonna be inside the array, right? So for the, like the A, that sorry, for the A, B, C, D, E, F, G, right? We gonna have to add that, and then once we've added it to the array, then we can continue. All right, so let's just go back. So I'm gonna say now, so we've declared it, right? So let's declare the other variable, which is also make it a string, and I'll just say original. All right, so original is gonna be equals to, what's the text box? I think it's text box 1. So text box 1 dot text semicolon. All right, so now we've gotten the items, right, for text box 1. So we can actually just say, if we wanted to, so we can actually just say cipher square brackets, and then at index 0, sorry, at row 0, and then for index 1, right, which is the first column, we can actually put in the strings, like initialize them manually, like so, right, from A to the last index at the end. So this process is kind of lengthy, right? So yeah, well, let me just say 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, right? Well, in the exam, you're not gonna be doing this, right? You're gonna be given the code. You're just gonna be continuing with what you're already given, right? So yeah, I'm just doing it manually. So A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, G, P, L, M, N, O. What comes after O? P. M, N, O, P. What comes after P? Is it S?
Q.
Oh, Q, thanks. Q, and then S, right? T, U, V. And then after V, W, Y, Z. And then we have a space.
R is missing.
What is missing? Or R, yes. T, wait, R comes before Q, R. I forgot how to the APCs. Let's just check from
PQRZ.
PQR. Thanks.
STUV.
Oh, R S T U V W Y and Z, and then we have the empty space. And then I'm not sure if my numbering was incorrect, but let's just see.
So I'm not a mistake about SR.
Angozwa? Or SR? So CBR. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, excuse me, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 20, 25, and then 26. I think I will have an error because I'm not supposed to be counting from 1. It's supposed to be 0. I have to start from 0 and then it ends at 25. Yeah, it ends at 25. How many letters are in the alphabet?
Common sense. Okay.
Sure. How many?
26 letters.
26. Okay.
Yes.
Thanks.
Push
Maybe
to X.
Bunny?
X.
At. Wait.
X.
Oh, X. Oh, yes. Thank you. Because I'm saying I can see that I'm missing something, but I just couldn't tell which one I was missing. Thanks. 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. All right. So for this one, it's a bit, I mean, it's a bit confusing when you're doing it for the first time. Even if you're doing it for, even if it's not your first time, but at first it's confusing when you think about it. Up until you visualize like a table, right? Because this first part represents the rows, the second part represents the columns, right? So for each column, we're putting in, for the first row, right? For each column, we're going to put these values that we're putting in here. And then we're still going to put in for index 1, the values, for row 1, the values that should be in row 1. So that's what we're doing here, right? As I was speaking, right, I was trying to bring my mind back to it because I don't normally use 2D arrays, but I understand how they work. So yeah, let me just check where X should be. Okay, so W, X, Y, and then that should be Z. Right, so we've done this first part, right? So since we're done with it, you can just copy this whole thing, right? And then paste it after this, right? And then once we've pasted it, we're gonna change everywhere where it's 0, change it to 1, because now we're looking at row 1. Or row 2, right? So this is row 2, but it's at index 1. So I'm gonna change everywhere where we have 0 to 1 here. and make sure that it's not saying the same number again, because I copied this, I didn't notice. So it should end at 26, right? And then once you have that, then now we want to put in the characters now. So these characters, so I'm gonna move this here to one side of my screen and then move this to the other so that I can see both, right? At the same time. So the first one is 1, and then that's 3, that is 5, that is S, that is, after S is V, that's gonna be H, that's gonna be R, that's gonna be 4, that's gonna be X, it's gonna be a percentage sign, and then we have a semicolon, then we have a comma, then we have the Q, then we have a W, then you have a 2, then you have a 4, then you have a 6, and after the 6 is equals to sign. And then the next one is a star, and then the next one is a B. Then the next one is that excuse me, that character. So I don't know how to get that character, but I'll just put in something else. Let's put in, do we have an exclamation point here? Okay, we're gonna put in an exclamation point here. Sorry. Because I don't have this character here after the B. So I'm gonna put in an exclamation point. I think it was here. So let me put an exclamation point, and in the next one, it's gonna be pi. So let's put in a hash, because I didn't see a hash anywhere. Right, and then for the next one, I'm gonna put in this sign here. It's you press shift and then the character below escape in your keyboard. So it's next to 1, right? So it's on the left of 1. So I'm putting that. And then for X, let's put in R, right? No, we already had R. So let's put in a $sign. And then for 24, not 24, 24 after the Z. Oh, it's the pound sign. So let's put in the ampersand, right? So this here for the N sign. And then the next one is gonna be, okay, let's add a hyphen, right? And then the last one is gonna be represented by plus. So there's some characters that we didn't have here, right? So I just inputted random attributes because I don't have access to that, or maybe they are here somewhere, but I just don't know how you get this character here, and also this one, and the infinity sign, and also the pound, right? But it doesn't matter, right? As long as we got the main point, right? So we've then okay, now I can expand my screen. So we've now set up the cipher, right? In terms of in initializing the alphabets, and then also initializing the ciphers, right? So now let's run a for loop, right? So now what we want to do is we want to go through each character that is in the original. And I'm gonna go back here, right? Because I wanna set this, right, to upper, right? And then I'm gonna say open and close brackets. Why am I saying to upper? I wanna make everything, all the text that is in this text box to be in capital letters, right? Because you see here, we have capital letters for what is this? Each character, right, in the array, right? So that's why I'm making it to be in uppercase letters. And then we're gonna look through each character in the original. And then as we look through them, we're gonna check to see which index, right, does the array have this character. And then once we find that index, we wanna get the cipher associated with that specific index, right? So let's think this through. So I'm gonna create a for loop. So it's gonna be an integer, and then I'm just gonna call the loop or rig, right? So it's gonna start at index 0, semicolon, and then again, orig should be less than original dot length, right? Because we're looping through each characters of the string, right? So we want the length of it. How long is it? So as long as our loop is less than the original length, then it can keep looping. Then we should say orig plus. Right. So the reason why I'm naming it orig is so that I can see that this is the loop. Right. So let's create another variable, right? And then I'm gonna call it code, because I can't really see which character I'm using unless so let me just create a string. And then I'm gonna code. So this is where I'm gonna store the cipher that I get, right? But now I can't really extract the item here like how I would use an array. I'd have to get the substring, right? So now let's just say sure.
So like for loop, when you're saying like for open brackets int orig is equal to 0, comma, orig is less than, like sometimes vector orig is less than or equal to
Okay. So now, okay, you can also say less than or equals to, and then, but if you're gonna say less than or equals to, you have to make sure that you put a -1 here. So let me just put it in a simple terms. Let's say original.length, right, is 13 characters. So your string, right, actually, let me just go back here. So you see here, story time here. So let's say that you typed in story time here in your in the text box, right? And then we're gonna store that in the original variable. So when we say when you say original.length, what it's gonna do, it's gonna count the characters here. So from so it's gonna say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So this is 10, its length, right? That's 10, or 10 characters, right? Including the space. So now you're gonna be looping from, remember that when we're looping, we loop from index 0, right? So we're counting from index 0. So S, right, from story time is at index 0. And then the last character, what do you think it's gonna be the index of E?
I think it's going to be on position 9 because since we're using the rule of n-1, right?
Yeah, right. So since it's going to be 9, right, So if you're gonna say less than or equals to, so that the original length, so the original length is gonna be 10. So if you don't put this -1, you'll run into an error because the loop will go to the 10th index. While and then when it does the operation here, right, it's not gonna find the 10th index because the last index is at index 9, as you just said. When we count from index 0, we start here, and then the last index is gonna be, as you said, 9, but we have 10 characters here if you're counting from 1. So that's why we have to -1 here if you're gonna say that it's less than or equals to, because we don't want to get to the index 10. We want to always stop at index 9. So is it making sense?
Yes. Thank you very much.
All right, sure. Okay, so again, what we're gonna do here, we're gonna look through each character in the what is this? In the original string, right? So for each character that we get, we wanna check if that character, right, exists in also we want to get the character from here, right? And then we want to see if it exists here. So let me just run a for loop inside this, right? So we're gonna run a for loop, right? And then I'm gonna call it int, and let me just call it I in this time. So I'm gonna say int I is equal to 0. Then I'm gonna say I is less than cipher, right, dot is it length? Actually, I can't put length here, right? I have to put in 27, right? And then I'm gonna say comma, because I know that there are 27 characters, because it with 2D arrays you can't use the dot length part, right? You're gonna get an issue. I just haven't searched how you can get the length, right, of the indexes. But anyways, oh well, what you could do, you could declare a variable, call it column, right, and assign it but no, don't do it that way, right? So let's just declare them manually, right, like so, and then we're just going to put in 27 because we know that there are 27 alphabets, right? So what I'll do is here I'll say I plus plus, right? And then inside the for loop, what I want to do now is I want to find the character. So let's just say here, let me create another variable here for the index. So original character, right? So this original character will just be storing the character that we are at, right? So I can just say original character, and there are multiple ways of doing it, right? I'm just doing it the way that I feel it's easier to extract the answer that I want, right? So original character, right, is equal to the original dot substring, right? And then from here, I want the index at orig, right? That's going to be the start index, and then comma, the length is going to be 1 because I only want character, because each time we loop, right, we're going to get that specific index. So we've now gotten the original character. And let me just create it here at the in the array at the top. And then in this inner array, I'll just gonna put in an if statement, right? So what I'm doing is I'll say if the original character, right, is equals to the cipher at row 0, and then the index is gonna be I, right, at that I. So we're gonna be looping now from A to the last, to number 26. So we're gonna be looping from A to number 26, right? And then we're trying to see if the character is equal to that, right? If it is, then what we're gonna do is we're gonna then add that code, add that original character, right, to the code, right? So we can just say plus equals to, so we can say original character no, we're not adding the original character, sorry, we're adding the cipher. So we're gonna say cipher, right, square brackets, and then we're gonna say 1 at index I, like so. And then now it should add each time it's gonna add the cipher that we found to this code. So basically, to repeat this process here, I'm creating an original character string variable, right? And then I'm gonna loop through all the items or all the characters in the original text that was typed in by the user from index 0 up until the last index, right? Up until index 9. Assuming that the characters were 9, right? So we were 10, sorry. So we're gonna loop up until index 9, right? But in this case, we're gonna loop up until original length -1 because we're saying less than or equals to. If we said less than, then we were gonna remove -1 here, right? And then we're just gonna assign that substring, right, or that character, right, that we add to the original character attributes that we created. And then we're gonna loop through from index 0 up until index 27, right? We're gonna loop, we're gonna check if the original character, so let's say the character is A. If A is equal to cipher at so index 0 or row 0, which is, and then we saying I, the I is representing the column. So again, going back here, so we're looking at this part here, right? So we're gonna loop through all of this, right? And we're gonna see if original character is equal to one of this. If it is equal to one of these, right? Let's say it's equal to T, right? It's gonna stop at index 19, right? So we're gonna get that 19, and then now we're gonna look here, right? What is index 19 here? So in this case, it's B, right? So we're gonna just add that B to the code. And then we're gonna repeatedly do that up until the code ends, right? So it's gonna loop in here and find the character that we want, and then go out of this for loop. Once it's finished looping, then it's gonna come back here, right? Then add the new character, then redo the loop again, right? After you're done, you can also break out of this if loop, right? But no, I'm just not gonna do that. I'm gonna leave it as it is, right? So after it's done getting the code, let's output the code. So let's say message box dot show, and then open and close bracket, semicolon. So inside the bracket, so the original was, and then we can say plus, and then original plus, and then I'm going to say, and the cipher was, or is, and then I'm going to say plus, then I'm going to say code, right? And then now we can run it, right, to test if it's working, right? I'm not saying that it's going to work, it's perfect, because we're still attempting this. Maybe I made a mistake somewhere, right? So I'm going to write story time, and then when I click cipher, it's going to, convert this to upper text, right? And then as you can see there, I've converted it to upper text. I think I can actually just create another variable for story time before I converted it to upper text, but it's fine. So you can see here that the cipher is star B2 what. So let's actually view this code here. So it's actually about the same, but remember that we replaced some of the characters because we couldn't have access to some of them. So you see, we wrote story time here, and then here's the output. It's about the same. Remember that for the ampersand, I put in this and sign, and then you can see it's getting the plus, and it's also getting the B. It's also getting the @ sign, and then the Q and V. So you see that we've coded it okay. So that is the cipher, right? So I'm hoping that everyone is with me, no one is left behind. If you are, then you can let me know. But again, right, when you see a question like this, at first I also was a bit confused. Yes, the answer is here, right? So as you can see, the answer is there, but I did it in another way to show you that I understand this, and we broke it down together, right? So as I said, right, when you get a question like this with a 2D array, right, you're gonna be given a table, right? And then with 2D arrays, right, just look at the table that you're given. In this case, you see that we have a table with 27 columns and 2 rows, right? The first one here, and then the second one. All right. So once you've established that, then you're gonna have to declare your array, right? As we did at the top here. So we declared a new array which has 2 columns and 27 rows. Sorry, 2 rows, 27 columns. So the first part represents the rows, the second part represents the columns. So we have 2 rows, 27 columns. All right. So once we've established that, then the next thing that we want to understand is what we need to do here, right? So it told us what we needed to do. In this case, right, you know that you have to declare these variables, but in a test, you won't be required to declare these variables. So that has already been done. You're just going to have to know, right, that this is how I declared it, right? Firstly, declare the alphabets, right, in the top column, right? So that, or at index 0 or the first column, right? And then we're gonna look at the different columns and then add the values for those columns. And then we're also gonna do the same for the second row, right? And then for each column, we're gonna assign the various ciphers, right? Once we've done that, then we're gonna have to then now extract the cipher, right, from the array, right? So that means we're gonna have to firstly look through all the items in the string that we entered, right? So that is why I created an array here for the original, right? And then you're gonna I created an extra variable and I named it original character so that it can hold that specific character that we're looking at that specific moment, right? So now I said original dot substring, and then it's going to ask me for the start index. The start index is going to be the looping index for the loop, right? Which I called it orig. And then I put 1 to say that I want only one character because we're looking at one character every time, right? We're inside the loop, right? And then inside the loop, we also add an inner loop so that now we can loop through all the items within the cipher array list, right? So since, the 2D array, right? So we're gonna loop from index 0 up until index 26 because we know that there are 27 alphabets, right, in the cipher. So that is why I put 27 here. And then it should be, I should be less than 27. So we're going to stop at index 26, right? And then we're going to check if the original character that we have here is equal to the alphabet at index I, right? So the alphabets again here at index I. So we want to see if the original character is equal to any one of these characters. And if it is equal to one of those characters, then we're just going to store that specific cipher right here, which is why I put 1, not 0. So I put 1 and then at index I. So I want to put the cipher at index I. And then we're going to add it to the code, right? And then every time it loops, right, it's going to loop and then find the character that we want and then add to the code, then go out again back here, look at the second character, then go inside here, loop again, and see which one is equal to which original character, which cipher does equal to the original character. And then when it finds it, it's going to add it to the code. It's going to redo that up until it gets to the last item or last index of the original length. And then once it's done, then we're just going to output the answer. Yeah. Hopefully it makes more sense. If you're still lost, I hope it will make more sense when you're watching the recording, right? So that was the 2D arrays. What else do you want to cover? So you wanted to cover test 1, question 3. All right. I guess we can cover that as one last thing that we can look at. Yeah, we can look at that. I'm just thinking, okay, let me pause the share. Let me just download that paper that you're looking at, that you said. So this is test 1, question 3. So you weren't sure about this one with the relational. I'm not sure if the person that asked this question is still here. But they said that they wanted to look at this question because they weren't sure, how to do this specific question, right? So, I mean, yeah, it is a bit confusing if you, haven't read your notes, but again, it's understandable because again, this thing, it is a bit hard. It's a bit easy. It depends on, what is this? It depends on you attempting this thing. Okay, so again, with the queries, I think you're gonna have to just go over the notes, right? But it's fine. With this here, so it says a company has operations in Cape Town and Durban. Each region maintains its database tables to store customer details. Sometimes customer data are duplicated across regions. Below is a snapshot of regions of customer details stored in both regions, right? So customer Cape Town and then customer Durban, right? Create a table that results from applying union relational operator to the tables, right? So yeah, now you want to create a table that results in a union amongst the two tables, right? So basically it's just you're just gonna have to write a query which is just gonna use both of the tables. So again, you were gonna have to use for these questions, you have to use SQL, right? So let me just type SQL. Oh well, this is not gonna work and up until we're gonna have to create the tables first. So that's the annoying thing. But we can do it. I guess we're gonna add a couple of records and then attempt it. So let me add a table so that you cannot say we didn't cover it, right? So we can just look at it real quick. So you have the customer Cape Town, which has the customer first name, the surname, and the cell number. It doesn't have a primary key, I guess. So let's say pass F name. It's gonna be a voucher. And then the next one is CAS surname, and then it's voucher. And then the last one is CAS cell number. Also a voucher. And then the table is called, I don't know, customer Durban. Right, so that's the customer Durban. So let's create the second one. So I'm gonna copy the same name because it's the same thing, right? And it's a voucher. And then the second one is customer name. And again, it's a voucher. Oh no. Let me try and do this quickly so that I can also talk about the ERD and then we can end there. Unless there are more questions, right, that you just want to ask before we end the session off. So customer cell phone. No. Let me just get the name from here. Right, so we got that now. So we can call this customer Cape Town. Right, so let's go to the page. So we wanna select that results in the results that applies the union operator between to the tables, right? So let's firstly add some records first because we want to get some data out here. I'm just going to enter one, okay, maybe two, and then I can move on to the next. And then I'll have to move this to one side of the screen and also that to one side so that I can just do it quickly. So that's John, and then that's Dory. And then I'm not going to type the number, I'm just going to copy it. And I'm typing in the wrong thing again. So I'm supposed to be getting the number here. Then the next one. Let me just enter only these two and then we can go back, right? You can just continue on your own. And again, the solutions are already on the online. So yeah, but again, it's nice to, you know, get an understanding of what the solution is than just having the solution but not knowing what it means, right? So yeah. So again, when you're working in industry, right, you'll be seeing these things. Well, it depends on your specific job, but you'd more or less see most of the stuff. Right, but you should know how to use SQL statements, right, to create tables, union tables, and you know, do all the fancy functions for your database. All right, so we've gotten the two tables, right? So we wanna, as it said here, we wanna create a table to apply that results from applying union operator to the tables, right? So that is like one table that we retrieve from the database, right? So I'm just gonna say select. Let me just see what happens when I say select star from the customer Durban, right? Union. Then I'm gonna say select star from customer Cape Town. Let's see what happens here. Right, and as you can see, it just combined all the columns together, right? And you're seeing some, well, you can say that they're duplicated in a sense, but yeah, they're duplicated unless if I said I only wanted the customer F name, then in that case, it might not duplicate the rows. It might show only John Dory 1, right? But since we selected all the columns, it's going to return both of them, but since they have a different number, right, they're unique, right? So that's the query that you would use here to combine both the tables, right? Then for question B, which relational operator is used if you want to generate a table to display customer records that exist in both tables? What do you think is that operator? If you're unsure, you can say you're unsure. You can react with a thumbs down or a thumbs up if you are sure. But if you're reacting with a thumbs up, you can just let us know on the chat, or you can unmute and speak if you have an idea. And someone has responded on the chats and they're saying intersection or intersect. Yeah, so yeah, it's intersect. So let's just go here. And then let me just type. No. I'm not sure if it's this one is gonna work properly. So yeah, I've just typed the intersect, and then you can see that it should return you know, data that will display data that exists in both tables, right? So yeah, it returned Peter Pan because Peter Pan exists in both tables and they are the same thing. So as you can see here in Cape Town and also here in Durban, they both have the same thing. So that's why it's going to return that record, right? And then for this one, I don't think we'll do it. I'll just explain it because here it says we just draw a resulting table for the following relational algebra operation, right? So you're just saying here, right? Project, and then you have the employee name, the salary, and the what is this? The surname and then the salary, right? So you just required to then draw this thing here, right? In this case, right, since you are calling the table, right, which is this table. So it's basically this table, right? So like they've written up a query, but they only mentioned the first name, the surname, and the salary. So the resulting table will just include the employee first name, the surname. It will exclude the city, but includes salary. So that's the columns that will appear here. And then the final one, which relational algebra operator is used to restrict rows in a table based on a certain character, on a certain criteria. Again, this goes back to what we just did here. So here you just said it's the same thing as select. So here the answer is select because that's how you're gonna restrict something to return only rows that you want with a certain criteria. Here also the same thing. So like, for example, if I said here with the customer Durban, you see that we have the customer first name and the customer last name. Let's say we only wanted the customer first name and the surname. So in this case, instead of saying, let me just remove this second part. So instead of saying select staff from customer, you could have just said select cus F name, comma, cus surname from customer, right? And then when you click execute, it's only going to return those attributes that you want, right? Or columns that you want. So yeah. So the answer for this one is select, and then also here, they use a select statement to only select these columns here. All right, so that was question one, this question. So I think we can end it here. But I wanted to see if there's something that talks about ERDs. Okay, it's fine. Okay, so like here, right? So you're gonna have to visualize this. I wish I had something to draw, right? I wish I had something to draw so that I can draw. So yeah, I think I have something. Can you see this on the screen? Yes, no? Can you see it? Can you see something blue, like a square blue? I think you can. If you can't, you can let me know. Okay. I just wanted to see if you see it. All right. So like, well, I wanted to explain in ERD, right? So you have a customer table, right? So let me just draw this here, this square, and I'm gonna name it CAS, right? And then that's for the customer. And you also see that we have an order ID table. So let me draw it here, right? ORD, right? I'm not going to spell the whole thing because I can't draw using this, right? And then we're going to also have the order item table. You get the point, right? So that's the order item, right? So with ERDs, right? When you are asked, well, it's nice when you're seeing like a table like this, but when you're asked to draw an ERD from what you see here, right? With the crow's foot notation, you know that the side that's gonna have the crow's foot is which part? Where do you think the foreign key is? Here. Can you identify any foreign keys from this table? From these tables, three tables here. Seems like once someone wants to try, you can try.
I think it's customer ID.
Yes, true. Customer ID is coming from here. And also we have the order ID, also have product ID, right? So those are the foreign keys. So the table with the foreign key is the table that's going to contain the crow's foot. So, or should I say the many side, right? Since a customer can have one or many orders, right? So Yeah, so this is going to be the one or many side, right? And then each order belongs to exactly one customer, right? So because the customer ID is the primary key, right? But a customer or a primary key can exist in the order table, can be duplicated in the order table, meaning that a customer can make multiple orders, right? So that's why I'm saying one to many, right? And then with the order item table, with this table, we see that the order ID is a foreign key there. It exists there. You can see there's order ID 1. You can also see order ID 1 again in the same table. So again, same logic appears here. So the order table, an order has one or many. So the many side is the one with the foreign key, right? So that's going to be the one or many part. And then the item, each item has exactly one order, right? Because if every order ID that appears here exists here, right? There must be one of them here. You can't have an order ID here that does not exist here, right? So again, that's going to be a one is too many. And then you can see that there's a product ID table. So there must be a product ID table here. You can see that there's a product ID foreign key here. So then there is another table for the product, right? And then again, same logic appears here. Since the foreign key is in the item table, the many side is going to be from this side. And then for the exactly one side, it's going to be from the product side, table side. So I just wanted to explain that about ERTs, right? But again, you need to read your notes just to elaborate, on this. So someone was asking me about normalization. I think I did that. I did a recording on normalization, but I can just elaborate on it. Let me just go to the slides real quick. So officially, I think we can end it there with the most crucial stuff, right, that we needed to cover, right? But again, I uploaded the recording of the tutorial 6, right, with the programming, and I explained each one of these of the transitive dependencies and normalization. But just for the sake of expanding on it, I'm not going to go through all the slides here, but I'm just going to explain what transitive dependency, first normal form, third normal form. So in terms of, let's start with partial dependencies, right? A partial dependencies is when one attribute depends on a primary key. Like, let's say you have a composite primary key, right, which is made up of C1 and C3 in this case. And then one of the foreign key, or one of the primary keys has an attribute that depends on it, which in this case, C2 depends on C1, right? So that is called a partial dependency because C2 only depends on one part of the whole primary key, which is made up of C1 and C3, right? That is called a partial dependency. And when there's partial dependencies, you know that you are in the first normal form, right? When there is a partial dependency, you know that you are in the first normal form. So make sure that you keep note of that. All right. So with transitive dependencies, right? With transitive dependencies, it's when there's an attribute that depends on one attribute that is not part of the primary key, right? So C4 in this case, C5 in this case depends on C4, but C4 is not part of the primary key, right? It's not a primary key. And you can see that C1 and C3 are the primary keys in this table. So C4 is not the primary key, but C5 depends on it. So that is called a transitive dependency, right? When you have transitive dependencies, then you know that you are in the second normal form. If there's no partial dependencies, but you have a transitive dependency, then you are in the second normal form. So now the question is, how then do you get to the third normal form? Well, to get to the third normal form, you need to make sure that you do not have any partial dependencies, and also you do not have any transitive dependencies. So once both of those are removed, then you know that you are in the third normal form because there's no transitive or partial dependencies. So to the person that asked about normalization, do you get it?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right, you're welcome. And again, you can go over this tutorial recording. I uploaded it in, just go over just scroll through on Learn. It's under one of these sections on chapter 6, right? So you should watch that video and it will just break down everything that is happening here, right? Navigating from first normal form to the third normal form, right? And yeah, I tried to break it down. All right, so are there any more questions? Well, if there aren't any questions, I guess we can end off the session here then. Yeah. One more thing, just make sure that you go over because we did cover 2D arrays, just go over the 1D arrays, right? Just to declare an array. So sometimes you may be asked when, or the question that you might ask, when do you use an array, right? You use an array when you have a fixed size, right, of something, right? When you know that you have a fixed size of something. Let's say, for example, the question is saying there are 5 students, right? And then you need to capture marks for those students, right? So let's say that there was a structure that was created, right, that contains the student name and the student mark, right? And then you are asked, and you are told that you need to enter details, or the details of those 5 students, right? So you know that you have 5 students, so you're gonna have to declare an array, right? And you know how to declare an array, right? But we can just do it quickly, like a small example that's not gonna take long. Let me just create this project. So let me just create it here. So you are told that you have students, right? Well, 5 students that you have for your array, right? So when you know that you have a fixed size, like so when you say int square brackets, and then you need to put in or initialize your array, right, to 5 characters, to 5, right? Because it said that there are 5 students. So since there are 5, then now you can look through if you want, right? Because this is an array of integers, right? It's numbers, right? I'm not going to create a button, a method. I'm just explaining it, right? So since there are 5 indexes that it allows, right? Or 5 ints that it allows, then you can, if you want to add an item to an array, right? You can just say array square brackets, and then maybe I should have named it something else, like array val. So let's say array val, like so, right, at index 0, right? So let's say you wanted that item at index 0. Of course, it's gonna give you an error because it's not within a method, right? So let's say you wanted to add something at index 0. So let's say you wanted to add the value 8, right? And then for another index, you wanted to add 1, right? And then this array, sorry, not add something. So this is at index 1, and then you wanted to add another character. Let's say you added 7, right? And then you're gonna have to do the same to fill in this array, because it said that it accepts, 5 indexes. So I'm just trying to add the items here. But you're just gonna go on your notes, just to read more about arrays. But we did do an example on 2D arrays, so it should be sufficient. And also, there are slides, right, that you can refer to if you want to. So as you can see, I've added an array that accepts 5 integers, right? And then for each index, I've stored the characters, right? I've stored the characters. I can actually, let's say, for example, you wanted to check which index contains 88, right? For example, this is just a small example, right? So in that case, you would need to loop through, right? So like you need to say int I is equal to 0, right? Semicolon, I is less than array val, which is our array dots length, right? Then semicolon, I plus plus, right? Then you're gonna inside the for loop, it's gonna loop, but as I said, you wanted to find the character that has, sorry, the index that has 89. So I'm gonna write an if statement, right? And then I'm gonna say if the array val at index I, right, is equal to 89, right, then I'm just gonna, let's just say I'm gonna output the index, right? So message box dot show, open and close brackets, semicolon, and then I'm just gonna say I. So let me just say the value 89 is in index, and then I'm gonna put in the I. So let's say I wanted to output the index of 89, where 89 is. So I'll have to loop through all the items of the array, right? And then I'm gonna check if the array at index I is equal to 89, right? If it is, then I'm just gonna output the value here, right? I can also create a count variable, right, to check if this part has happened. If it doesn't happen, then I can just say the value was not found, right? So let's say I'm going to create a count value, and then I'm going to say count plus plus, right? So I'm going to increment count by 1. So initially it's 0, but if this part happens, then count now will be 1. So after the for loop, then I'll just say if count, so if count is greater than 0, then I know that this if statement didn't happen, right? I can just output a message, the value of 89 is not found, right? I'm gonna move this to a form load, right? To the form load method, so that this, and then run it, and then so that you can see that when the form loads, right, and this method happens, right, it will find 89 because we do have 89. But if it didn't have 89, we can change it also. If it didn't have 89, it should show this message. So 89 is not found. I didn't mean to run it, so I clicked the wrong button. So it's not found. Right. So let me double click on the title bar and it'll create a form load method. So I'll just move this code here to the form load method. So I just want it to happen when the form loads, not when the button is clicked. Right? Because I'm just testing it with you guys real quick. Okay, so now we've done that. Okay, so okay, let's put in a breakpoint here and then let me start it. So when the form starts, right, initially array val, right, as you can see, it's null. It doesn't have anything, right? And then when the forms loops, or when it goes to the next line, and remember that when the system is running, it reads the code from top to down, right? So just keep that in mind, right? So at the first part, right, we initialize the index 0 to 8, right? Since we only allow 5 integers, and you can see for now it's still all 0, right? The indexes, but when we step into, right, you can see now now we've initialized the 0th index to 8. So you can see here at index 0, it's now 8, right? We're going to step into again. Now index 1 is 7. Step into again, it's 89. Step into again, index 3 is 77. Step into again, now index 4 is 87. And then we initialize the count to 0, and then we're going to go to the for loop. So it's going to loop through this here. So you can see now, in this current instance, it's at I is 0, right? So now we're looking at index 0, so for the array. So we're trying to compare if index 0, which is 8, so 8, if 8 is equal to 89. In this case, 8 is not equal to 89, right? So it will skip the if statement, right? And then it will go up and then loop again, and then it's going to check now, since I now is equal to 1, right? So it's going to check if 1 is equal, well, index 1 is 7, so it's going to check if 7 is equal to 89. No, it's not, so it's going to go out and then loop again. So again, it's going to increment I by 1. So now you can see I is equal to 2. And then we're going to step into again at index 2, right? At index 2, we know that the array is 89, right? So let's step into again. Now it's going to go inside the if statement, and then now it's going to output the message box. And then you can see the value of 89 is in index 2, right? And then it's going to increment count by 1. And then we're going to go out. And then since now count is 1, right? So it's going to loop up until it's finished, because we didn't set the code to break out of the if statement after it's found this part. So it's going to finish off. Once it's done, it's going to go here. Count is already 1. So we were supposed to say if it's not equals to 0, not so this is going to happen because count is greater than 0. We're supposed to say it's not greater than 0, but we saw that it found that. So that is how arrays work. So you have to, when the question is telling you, right, that you are given a number of students, like for example, if it's looking at students and their mark, right? So you are given a number of students, and you are required to create a structure, and there are 5 students. So you're going to create your structure, and then once you've created your structure, you're going to set your array to be of that structure. It's not going to be int, right? So if your structure was student, like for example, if you said public struct student, right? And then curly brackets, and then inside there you created a, so let's just say you created their name, and then also you created their final mark. Let's just say it's only those two attributes, right? If you just created the structure, then when you're declaring your structure here, sorry, your array, it won't be of type int, it will actually be of type student, right? And then you're gonna say new student, right? So let's say it's 5. Okay, let me just make it 2, right? Let's say it has 2 students, right? In this case, you won't be assigning it this way, right? Well, you will be assigning it this way, but it's going to be a bit different, right? Why am I saying it's going to be a bit different? So let's just do this example, right? And then once we're done with this example, we can end it there, right? So that you can't say I left you hanging, right? So you're going to say here, right? So what we want to do is we want to create a new student object, because our array is of type student, and then it's only going to accept 2 students. So when we want to add a student to the array, firstly, we have to create the student object, right? So we're going to say student, right? And then we can call this new student. Let's call it new student 1, because that's going to be the first student, right? And then we're going to say new student, and then open curly brackets like so. And then at the end, you need to make sure you put a semicolon. So inside the brackets here, we're going to say name. So the name is equal to let's say Jack. Wait, I'm trying to see what it says. Oh, inaccessible because of its protection level. So let me just say public, right? So yeah, and also for this thing here, right? The reason why you can't access it is because it's private. It's set to private by default, so you just need to say public, right? So that you can access the value, right? So we're gonna initialize the name to Jack, and then comma, then add the final mark, right? So the final mark is let's say they got 69, right? And then once we've declared that, we're gonna declare the second student, right? So let's declare the second student, right? So students, and then we're gonna say new student 2. That's the second student, right? Is equal to new student, and then name is equal to max, right? And then comma, and then I'm gonna say final mark is equal to, let's say the mark is equal to 70, right? And then at the end, semicolon. So now when I want to add these new students that I just added to the array, right? What I'll do is I'll say array val, right? That's the name of the array. Square brackets 0. So I want to add the first student. So in this case, I'll just say new student 1, right? Sorry, new student 1, and then semicolon, right? So now I've added the first students to the first index of the array. Then I'll do the same for the second one, right? So at index 1, I'm gonna put in this new student 2, right? That I just declared here. All right, so now I've added the 2 students onto the array, right? Then the next thing I want to do is I want to then let's just loop through the array, and what we want to do, we want to get the student with the highest mark, right? So let me just remove all of this except for the for loop, right? So that you can just get a sense of what we're doing here, right? So let's get the students with the highest mark, right? So you can add more. If you said 5 students, you're gonna have to declare 5 students objects and then add them to the array, right? And then once you've added them to the array, then you can get to this part. But again, you can there are multiple ways of doing this, but I'm just showing you as a more simple idea just to see what is going on, right? So we're gonna loop through all the items, right, of the array, all the indexes of the array. So we know that there are 2 students right here. So firstly, we're gonna create the first mark. So let's say let's call it, sorry, it's gonna be a new student, and then we're gonna call it temp, right? So temp is equal to array val at index 0. So here, what I'm saying at index 0, I'm basically just getting the student here, which is Jack, and their mark is 69. Remember that we assigned at index 0 new student 1, right? And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna assign that temp to, sorry, that first student to the variable temp, right? And then we're gonna see if the student at temp, so if temp is greater than or equals to the array val at index I, right? Actually not temp, so temp dot final mark, right? Because we want to see the final mark, or we want to see the highest final mark, right? So if the temp dot final mark is greater than or equals to, now it shouldn't be greater than or equals to, if it's greater than the array at index I dot final mark, then what we're gonna do is we're just gonna say no, let me swap it the other way around so that I don't confuse myself, right? So I'm gonna put this here. So if the array at index I final mark is greater than temp dot final mark, then what we're gonna do is we're gonna assign temp to be equals to be that array val. So we're gonna assign temp to be that specific student that has the highest mark, right? And let's paste it there. And I'm gonna move this line, forgive me for this, I'm gonna move this line here outside the for loop, because I wanna get the actual I wanna get the actual student with the highest mark. So I'm gonna use temp for that. So it's gonna loop through, and then each time it finds a student with a higher mark than temp, then what we're gonna do is we're gonna assign that mark to the temporary variable, right? So that when the loop finishes, we can then say message box.show, open and close bracket, semicolon. Then I'm gonna say the student with the highest mark is, and then I'm gonna just say array, oh no, I'm just gonna say temp dot name, right, to get the name of that student. And then I'm gonna say with a final mark of, then I'm gonna say plus, then I'm gonna say temp dot final mark. Right, now I'm gonna get the final mark of the student. So let's just add 5 students, right? And then I'm gonna change I'm gonna change the values, right? So as you can see, that's 5. So let's add 3 more. So I'm gonna copy the second students 3 times. Then this is gonna be student 3. And then the final mark is gonna be, let's make it 60. Let's make it 90 for this one. This is student 4. And then I'm gonna call him Ryder, and then that's gonna be student 5, and then that's gonna be Ben, and he has, yeah, he's gonna have 72, right? So then what I'll do is I'll just say here, I'll just copy this part and then just paste it 3 times, and then that's gonna be index 3, no, index 2, and then that's gonna be student 3, that's student 4, and then that's student 5, and then that's index 3, that's index 4, right? So I've added the 5, I've added new 5 students, right, as you can see, and then I've assigned them to each index of the array, right? And then once I've assigned it, then what I do is I take the first student and I store them in the temporary student attributes, right? So once I've stored it, then I'm gonna use that variable then to check, right, if the array at index I final mark is greater than the temp final mark. If it is, then we're just gonna update temp with that student with the high mark, right, up until we get to the end. And then after it gets to the end, temp should hold the student with the highest mark. And then we're just going to output the name of the student in their final mark. All right. So let's run it, right? Okay, no, I'm going to say this point after I'm done, right? So as you can see, the student with the highest mark is Ryder with a mark of final mark of 90, right? So as you can, okay, let me just stop it here. So as you can see, Ryder is the 4th student, and they have the highest mark, which was 90. So it went from the first one, the second one, the third one, and then it saw that 90, it stored it, and then also checked this one, it saw that it was less than, so it didn't cover that part, so it only took 90, right? So basically that's what's happening here. And also we can put a breakpoint so that you can see, right? Let me just run it again. So again, when I put a breakpoint, I'm going to step into the next line. Initially, the array is null, right? When I step into, it's initialized now to 5 students, right? And then I'm going to step into, we're going to declare the students, right, object. So as you can see, right, we have declared Jack, right, with their final mark, right? The second student hasn't been declared as yet, so you can see it's now. So when we step into again, now you can see it enters the values. That step into again, we're going to step into again, and then now we're going to insert the values to the array. So we insert these values to the array, right? And then we're going to set temp, right? Temp is now, but we're going to assign it the value, which is Jack, right? Which is the first student that we initialize, right? Which is new student 1, and which we initialize to index 0, right? Once we done this, then we're going to loop through the for loop. So we're going to check if 69, right, is, or just say at index I. So at index I, which is index 0, we were trying to see if 69 is greater than 69. It's not, so it's going to skip this if statement, right? Go to the next one, come back again, right? Then it's going to check now if let's see, now it's the final mark is 70. So if 70 is greater than 69, right? In this case, it is, right? So now we're going to go inside the if statement, and then we're going to replace now the student that was in temp with this new student. In this case, this new student at index 1 is a max, right? So we're going to initialize that. So as you can see, temp now is equals to max, so 7 or 70. Then we're going to step into again. Then it's going to check the next one. The next one after 70 is Stacy. So Stacy is not, their final mark is not greater than 70. So we're going to skip Stacy, then loop again, right? Then come back here. After Stacy is Ryder, right? So 90 is greater than 70. So now temp will now be equals to 90, because now it's going to be equals to this new student, which is Ryder. Then we're going to step into again, then step into again, and then it's going to check the last student. In this case, Ben, their final mark is less than 90, so we're going to skip that. So now temp is, as you can see here, the final mark is 90, and the name of the student is Ryder. Then I'm going to step into, so it's just going to finish its process, and then now it's done. And then now you're seeing that the highest student is Ryder with the final mark of 90. So that's how this here works, right? This array, right? In terms of, okay, so we're gonna stop here, but in terms of this part here, when you declare a new student, right? In your what is this called? In your test on exam, you won't be declaring a new student like this, of course. You'll be told the code, right? Maybe for example, you're gonna have another form, right? Where you're gonna click on a button, and then it's gonna take you to another form, and then you're gonna insert the marks for those five students, right? So once you've inserted them, you're gonna be basically doing the same thing, but you're doing it in another way, right? And then every time you add a new student, so let's say you add student 1, you're gonna then assign them to the array, right? But initially, when your form loads, you're gonna initialize your array to 5, right? And then you're just gonna be inserting the students one by one through a form, right? After you're done inserting them, and then you insert them to the array, then what you're gonna do is, if there's another button, get the student with the highest mark, you using the same approach that we just did here, right? To get the students with the final mark. All right, so yeah, we've covered strings, we've covered arrays, we've covered 2D arrays. We also look at ERDs or relational databases, and we also looked at normalization briefly. All right, so that brings us to the end. If there are any queries, feel free to let me know. If not, I guess we can end the session here. And good luck, guys. Cheers.